You know that feeling, that quiet hum of dissatisfaction, maybe?
Mm.
Or sometimes it's more overwhelming, like you're constantly fighting something.
Yeah, like swimming upstream all the time.
Exactly. Whether it's just, information overload or what society expects, or even struggles with your own body.
Right.
What if a lot of what we just accept as, well, normal is actually part of the problem? From really intimate stuff to our overall health.
That's a huge question.
So today we're doing a deep dive into just the how societal conditioning really impacts our well-being. We want to explore these ingrained beliefs about, say, sex, self-worth, even how we think about illness.
And how they shape us, often without us realizing.
Precisely. The mission here is to kind of unpack this myth of normal, as one of our sources calls it, and maybe find pathways to feel more, I don't know, authentic, more integrated.
Makes sense. And we've got some really interesting sources to draw on for
We
this.
do. We're looking at insights from Nicole Daydon's Slow Sex, Osho's The Book of Man, and Dr. Gabor Mate and Daniel Mate's The Myth of Normal.
Quite a mix. They all seem to challenge the status quo in different ways.
They really do. Together, they offer this mosaic of surprising ideas, compelling arguments. It's all about pushing back on assumptions and finding deeper self-understanding, maybe even healing.
Okay, let's get into it. Where do we start with this myth of normal?
Well, let's start right there. This idea that normal itself may be the problem. Dr. Mate's work is fascinating on this.
Yeah, he basically argues that the whole concept of normal in our society is, well, a myth. He throws out some staggering numbers that really make you stop and think.
Like what?
Like in the US, 60% of adults have at least one chronic disorder. 60%. And 40% have two or more.
Wow, that's a lot.
It is. And nearly 70% of Americans are on at least one prescription drug. Plus, we're seeing these big rises in autoimmune conditions, even non-smoking cancers.
So his point isn't just that individuals are sick.
No, his core argument is, look, just because millions of people share the same problems or vices or errors, that doesn't suddenly make them okay or healthy or true.
Right, mass delusion doesn't equal reality.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
Millions sharing a pathology doesn't make it health. It's a really powerful way to reframe how we look at widespread issues.
So if it's not just individual failing, how does Mate connect this back to society itself? What's the mechanism he points to?
Well, a big part of his argument targets conventional medicine. He says it often reduces these really complex human experiences down to just biology.
Separating mind and body.
Exactly. He calls it an impoverished perspective.
Yeah.
Because it focuses so much on symptoms, it often misses the bigger picture, the emotions, the social environment, the trauma, all the context where illness actually develops. It creates a blind spot for true healing, in his view.
That makes a lot of sense. And it suggests that these struggles, maybe they start way earlier than we think. Osho talks about this, doesn't he? About early life and self-love.
He does, and it's quite a provocative take. Osho asserts that every child is born with this natural inherent self-love. It's just there.
Okay.
But he argues society, and he includes religion here, systematically destroys it. It gets diverted
Diverted where?
to external things. God, leaders, parents even. The idea is that this makes individuals dependent, makes them feel like beggars in their own eyes, always looking outside for validation.
So instead of valuing ourselves intrinsically,
We learn to seek value elsewhere. Osho actually champions what he calls a natural, healthy selfishness, not in a negative way, but as a basic need for growth, like taking care of your own core needs first.
which is the opposite of sacrificing yourself for, as he puts it, stupid ideas like flags or nations.
Exactly. His point is that this foundational self-love isn't just lost by accident, it's actively redirected, and that leaves this deep internal void.
That's a critical idea. So we're basically taught to be ashamed of our authentic selves, our real desires. Nicole Daydon touches on this too, right, in the context of sex.
She does. She talks about how we learn which desires are appropriate, and we start feeling ashamed of the others. This creates what she calls a heavy patchwork quilt of shame that eventually just smothers our desire, scares it away.
And Osho calls this repression, what was it, slow suicide.
Yeah, slow suicide, a kind of internal poisoning that just destroys vitality. Whereas expression, letting your authentic self out, that's life, creativity, joy.
So this internal conflict, this shame about who we really are, just drains us.
Absolutely. It prevents us from living fully. It's this constant internal battle.
Okay, so if this erosion starts early, Mate thinks to argue that modern culture actually makes it worse. He talks about the sabotage of childhood. How does he see that happening?
He highlights several things, but a couple are really striking. First, he talks about the impact of parental stress in modern Western culture, how it undermines natural instincts, creates isolation.
Making parenting harder than it needs to be.
Yeah, and under these stressful conditions, kids increasingly turn to their peers for comfort and connection, rather than parents.
Which sounds okay on the surface, maybe?
But Mate calls it a cope, not hope,
Mm.
because peers offer conditional acceptance. They can't really provide the deep emotional support needed for development. It's a fragile foundation.
Okay, that's one aspect. What else?
The other big one he talks about is the constant digital distraction, specifically phones, even during really crucial bonding moments, like nursing or changing a diaper.
Right, you see parents doing that all the time.
And Mate argues this actually disrupts the neurobiology of attachment. It gets in the way of releasing bonding chemicals like oxytocin, serotonin. It sends this quiet, unintended message to the child.
You don't matter.
Exactly. A wounding message, as he puts it. And the potential long-term impact on attachment and mental health is, well, huge.
That's sobering. Just the subtle, constant displacement.
And there's another element tied into this, the loss of real play.
Play. How does that fit in?
Mate sees genuine play, the kind that isn't about winning or achieving something, just the fun of doing it as a primary engine for brain development and emotional maturity.
So, not organized sports necessarily, but just messing around.
Pretty much. But he says it's being sacrificed. Sacrificed to consumerism, digital entertainment. Kids aren't getting enough of it.
And the consequence.
It's more than just missing out on fun. It's missing out on essential neural workouts that build resilience, emotional regulation. He sees it as a developmental necessity, not a luxury. Its absence could set kids up for struggles later on.
Oh, it really does make you rethink what we consider normal parenting, normal childhood. Okay, this is a lot about how we're shaped early on. Let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about sex and intimacy, which is often loaded with conditioning. Dayton's work, Slow Sex, really digs into this.
Yeah, and one of the first things Dayton highlights is just how common the struggles are. It's not just a few people. Many individuals, many couples, especially women, find it really hard to have satisfying sex, deep intimacy.
To the point of giving up.
Often feeling on the verge of giving up, yes. She talks about common themes like, lack of orgasm, the libidos that don't match up, or just a general disinterest setting in. It's incredibly frustrating.
And she specifically mentions a kind of cultural issue around female orgasm.
She does. She calls it the problem child of our society. The core issue, she says, is that we constantly compare female orgasm to the male experience, using the male orgasm as the default, the model.
Which leads to problems.
Big problems. It creates this toxic blame game. If a woman doesn't climax, maybe the man feels he's not sexy enough or he can't get her off, or the woman gets labeled frigid or too stressed.
An impossible situation.
Exactly. It's a cultural conundrum. Dayton even shares a personal story about her own mother being shocked and deeply disappointed when she chose to work in the field of sexuality. It just shows how deep this negative conditioning runs.
And it sounds like a lot of the pain comes down to communication, or rather, the lack of it, the vulnerability involved.
That's absolutely central. Voicing what you actually want sexually can feel incredibly vulnerable. It brings up huge fears of rejection.
Like just asking can feel risky.
Totally. Dayton describes how the thought of a request just sort of hanging in the air can feel saturated with sensation. We immediately start interpreting what a no, or even maybe later, means about our desirability.
We add layers of meaning that might not even be there.
Precisely. She gives an example of a student whose partner simply wanted to postpone sex, but he instantly jumped to thinking she wasn't attracted to him anymore. Spiral of doubt.
So the key is
To strip down, as she puts it. Be present for whatever answer you get, without layering on all that interpretation. See the no as just a no, not a commentary on your entire being.
easier said than done, I imagine. And do gender dynamics make this even harder?
Oh, definitely. Dayton points out that women are often conditioned to basically take what you can get in sex. They hesitate to communicate subtle needs or adjustments for fear of bruising fragile egos.
While men feel pressure to just...
Right. They're often reluctant to ask for direction because they want to seem like they instinctively know what to do. So what happens? Men end up powering through, and women end up acting as if everything's fine.
instead of actual connection.
Exactly. It prevents genuine connection and shared pleasure.
What about when women do complain, though? Is that just negativity?
Dayton has a really insightful take on this. She says, behind every woman's complaint is a desire.
Okay. Explain that.
She sees the complaint not just as criticism, but as a kind of protective wall, a perilous moat around a very tender, vulnerable desire. The complaint is often a clumsy signal that something important is missing, something she needs handled with care.
So for men trying to understand this, what's the takeaway?
Clear communication is key. Dadon says men are often trained for overt communication and are, her words, reliably useless at understanding anything we don't actually say.
So hints don't work.
Generally, not well. She advises women to use simple, plain words spoken out loud. Specificity helps. And here's a kicker. She says approval turns men on, but genuine acceptance. That lights them up like the Eiffel Tower. It fosters that deeper connection.
This all points towards needing different approaches, doesn't it? New ways to think about wholeness, intimacy. How do we move beyond just focusing on climax?
And that's exactly where Dadon's orgasmic meditation, or OM, comes in. It's a core part of her slow sex approach. The goal is completely different from the usual goal-oriented sex.
Not about the finish line.
Not at all. It's about feeling the specific sensation, the stroke itself, and really applying attention to what she calls orgasmic energy as it arises. It's about the process, the feeling, moment by moment.
And what about frustration? Doesn't focusing on sensation without climax lead to that?
Apparently not, if done with the right intention and techniques. OM includes grounding practices designed to reintegrate the energy so you feel electrified with sexual energy and not at all frustrated. Dadon admits she herself was numb for years, sort of addicted to pressure, and it took 6 months of practice for her to realize how profoundly OM was changing her experience.
It's a journey into sensation, not just a destination.
Beautifully put.
Osho also talks about a different kind of sexual experience, Tantra. How does that fit in?
Osho describes tantric sex, similarly, as an experience of energy moving up, not just out. He suggests it leaves couples feeling more energized, vital, radiant.
More alive afterwards.
Yes. He notes that ejaculation, unless it's for procreation, can actually be a waste of energy from this perspective. Tantric practices focus on circulating energy, leading to deep, lasting relaxation, sometimes for hours or days.
So both Dadon and Osho are pointing towards a more expansive, maybe more energetic experience of intimacy.
Definitely. Away from a purely mechanical or goal-driven act towards something richer.
And Dadon suggests women have a particular role here in bringing this expanded sense of orgasm into the world.
She does. She feels that plugging into orgasm in the expanded sense, meaning feeling that kind of alive, connected, orgasmic energy in everyday life, not just during sex, comes more naturally to women.
Oh, so?
Through what she calls reception, opening to genuine sensation and energy, rather than striving or forcing. She sees it almost as a woman's responsibility to cultivate this and bring it into the world, valuing this capacity for diffuse, present-moment awareness.
That's a powerful idea. It loops back nicely to Dr. Mattei and healing because he also talks about a different way of relating to our experience, even illness. He sees illness not just as an enemy.
Right, this is one of Mattei's most profound points. Instead of seeing disease purely as a threat to be fought, he suggests viewing it as a teacher.
A teacher? How?
It's an opportunity for learning, for growth. He gives examples, like a woman named Julia, who apparently had beautiful conversations with her rheumatoid arthritis, which ultimately led to her living symptom-free.
So asking, what is this illness trying to tell me? Rather than just, how do I get rid of it?
Exactly. It fundamentally shifts the relationship from one of battle to one of inquiry.
Is there scientific backing for this more holistic view, this mind-body connection?
Oh, absolutely. Mattei points to the whole field of psychoneuroimmunology. Modern research clearly shows deep connections between our emotions, our nervous system, our immune system, our hormones. They're all constantly talking to each other.
Like stress causing inflammation.
Precisely.
Mm.
He identifies stress and trauma as prime drivers of inflammation. They can even impact our genes, affect our telomeres. So you really can't separate the biological from the psychological and emotional. They're interwoven.
Which implies we aren't just passive victims when we get sick.
That's the crucial implication. If disease is connected to our history, our context, our stress levels, then we're not helpless. We can become active participants. We can make new choices, seek new understandings, change our environment or our responses.
We reclaim some agency.
Exactly. But Mattei cautions, this isn't always easy. True healing, he says, involves opening ourselves to the truth of our lives, past and present.
Facing the difficult stuff.
Acknowledging the wounds, doing an honest audit of their impact. And yes, the truth hurts, as he says, but he argues the cost of not facing it is ultimately much higher.
So how do we approach this kind of deep self-work without just beating ourselves up or getting stuck in blame?
Mattei is very clear on this. It starts with Compassionate curiosity, not self-shaming.
Okay, what does that look like?
It means gently identifying the self-limiting beliefs you might be holding on to. Like maybe the belief is, I'm responsible for everyone else's feelings. Then you ask, okay, if I believe that, what am I not saying no to? What boundaries am I not setting?
Ah, so it's about understanding the pattern, not judging it.
Right. He even suggests reframing guilt not as a sign you're bad, but as a well-meaning friend trying to protect you, maybe based on old patterns. You can acknowledge it, thank it, and then let your adult intelligence take over.
And creativity helps too.
Yes, he strongly advocates for creative self-expression. Music, writing, art, whatever. Citing Janos Salai, he says, what is in us must out. Otherwise, we may explode at the wrong places. Expression is a vital release.
Beyond this kind of self-inquiry, what other pathways to healing do these sources mention? Mate talks about indigenous wisdom.
He does. And he has profound wisdom there, particularly the deep understanding of interconnectedness, the concept of all my relations, meaning we exist in relationship not just with people, but with the whole world.
So healing isn't just an individual thing.
In that view, it's often a spiritual journey. The body reflects the mind and spirit. The goal isn't just to avoid death, but maybe to die healthy, meaning integrated and whole, rather than assuming sickness is inevitable with age. It's a very different perspective from the typical Western one.
And he also discusses psychedelics, which is quite controversial. What's his take?
He shares his own extensive experience, particularly with ayahuasca, which he initially resisted. He's clear they aren't a magic bullet.
But they can be a tool.
A powerful tool, he suggests, for helping to relax and unfasten rigid beliefs, defenses, what he calls militant unbelief. They can sometimes allow access to a deeper core self beyond the conditioned personality and demographics,
Revealing what?
potentially revealing the peace, joy, and love at the core of being alive, as he puts it. He shares a story of someone with a severe physical illness who, during an ayahuasca experience, saw herself beyond her body and identity, which was transformative for her healing. It's about accessing a different layer of self.
It sounds like letting go of control is often part of these deeper healing experiences.
Very much so. Mate emphasizes that healing often requires surrendering the thinking mind's constant need for control and certainty. He even talks about his own experience late in life of finally surrendering control, which he felt was necessary for a significant healing moment, a touch of grace, he called it, not something he forced.
Wow. Okay. So we've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah,
From how society shapes us in ways we barely notice to the complexities of sex and communication, and then these really diverse paths towards authenticity and healing.
yeah, from the problem child of female orgasm to the corporate siege on childhood that Mate describes, and even seeing illness as a teacher.
The common thread seems to be the immense power of our conditioning, but also our potential to break free from it, our innate capacity for something more authentic.
Definitely. The possibility is always there.
So here's a final thought, something provocative for you listening. Considering all this, what myths of normal might you still be unconsciously living by?
Good question.
Is there maybe a small, authentic desire or perhaps an uncomfortable truth that's just waiting for you to acknowledge it, to give it some space, to maybe stop acting as if and start genuinely living it?
Even in a small way.
Exactly. What would it look like for you to trust your own instincts just a little more today, to really listen to your body, or to reclaim even a sliver of that inherent self-love Osho talked about in some area of your life?
It doesn't have to be a massive overhaul.
Not at all. Just a small step. This journey to self-knowledge, it's profound, it's ongoing. We really invite you to continue your own deep dive, listening to that inner voice and exploring courageously what it truly means to be you.